Hello again, everyone. I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with the vertical format for this. I know it kind of messes up the positioning in the little window a little bit, but I just like this one a little bit better. Never mind my little Seuss Linux hat today. The wind and the rain have messed up my hair so tremendously that I'm just not even going to bother trying to fix it, right? Just getting off of work, doing the usual. So today, I want to talk about something that wasn't necessarily a lesson that I had to learn, but is a lesson that I've had to teach a lot of times. Like a lot of times. It's crazy how much this lesson has become more and more important, especially in modern society. So today's topic deals around what is loyalty, right? Loyalty is not people agreeing with you and just blindly having your back. Loyalty is people holding you accountable to your values, your dreams, your goals, disagreeing with you when you are wrong, and making sure that you can be the best version of you that you intend to be, right? And what I mean by this, so good example for me, right? There are certain values that I hold near and dear, and there are some friends that would know those and support me on those, right? I fully expect in the event that I am doing anything that is out of alignment with my values, I want them to tell me. I urge them to always tell me, and I create and foster the environment where they can pull me aside and say, hey, Vic, the thing that you're doing right now doesn't match up with blah, blah, blah that you communicated to us at another time, right? Too many people just surround themselves in an echo chamber that never questions anything they say. It's so much of what's said is just garbage, right? If you have a friend who, let's say you're in a fight with a loved one, right? Let's say husband or wife, right? A romantic partner. And your friends are like, oh yeah, that person is jacked up. They're the problem. They're this, they're that. And they don't ask any questions. They don't seek to understand. You've actually, I know people who cause problems for their wives. The Arbinger Institute has something called a collusion, right? And a collusion is essentially when you create the problem that bothers you. So I'll give you a classic example that happens in a lot of marriages, right? The husband doesn't like that the wife's hair is all over the bathroom, that her makeup is all over the sink, that all this stuff is going on. So he gets angry about it. He knows that she doesn't like it when he leaves the toilet seat up. So he leaves the toilet seat up to get back at his wife for leaving all that other crap all over the place. The wife, on the other hand, really dislikes when her husband leaves the toilet seat up. It makes her really mad. So she responds in her frustration to him leaving the toilet seat up by intentionally leaving all her stuff all over the sink and her hair all over the place because she knows that's something that he really dislikes, right? So in both cases, both parties feel justified by doing what the other person hates, right? Because they feel that I wouldn't do this if they didn't do that. Right? This collusion model is an interesting little thing, right? And you got to start by breaking the cycle. But how do you break the cycle if you don't realize you're the problem? Or at least part of the problem, that you share blame. If your friends and family never challenge you on your decisions, they never challenge you on what you say, how you feel, any of those things, then they are not in it for your growth. They are not in it to see you be successful. If your friends and family do not ask you questions, well, why'd you react that way? What about that situation made you feel that way? What made you think it was appropriate to quit your job just because someone said a mean word to you? I just had one of these accountability conversations with one of my good friends, right? This guy's had a really tough time since he has gotten out of the military, since he got out of Ranger Regiment. And he has been bouncing between jobs. And him and I have had this conversation a couple times. And I try to be careful, how I approach it, right? Because he's still my friend. And I don't want to, I know that there's a mental health factor involved. And I don't want to burden or over push. I don't want to blame. I want things to be successful. But like, he quit a job because someone said a mean word to him, right? And he doesn't have another job. He doesn't have another option. His son is not necessarily taken care of. And him and I had to have a serious conversation. Well, why did you quit that job? What about those mean words? What about your pride is worth your empty stomach? What about your pride is worth your son not having what he needs? Right? Because these are grown folk type thoughts. You can't just be in an environment where you expect everyone to kiss your butt, right? You do have to understand, like, I encourage, just like you've heard me in other videos, like, challenge me. My ideas are not always the best ideas. And I have no loyalty to my way of doing things. I have a loyalty to the best way of doing things. I have a loyalty to the best way of doing things that account for my values, what I hope to achieve. I do the same thing with my employees at work, right? I'm not always going to have the best idea. Very seldom will I, right? Because I have a team of highly capable professionals working for me, right? And I can go to any of my subordinate supervisors at any given time and say, hey, here's the problem. Communicate the vision of what's going on, what I need them to address, and send them out to do amazing work. And you know what? I might not always get it back the way I would have done it. But is it not okay because they didn't do it the way I would? So this really ends up mattering, right? Like, and the reason I say this is because there's so many people that only surround themselves with people who regurgitate the same ideas, the same thoughts, the same talking points, and then they go nowhere in life. There's no growth. There's no room for growth. When you see people right now who can't have a conversation, let's use politics. They can't have a conversation with people on either side of the aisle. You know how rare it is to actually encounter like a true, like they just have no reasonable thoughts. Like they are just completely unreasonable, completely crazy, completely like, you know how rare that really is when you get to talking to them and you start walking through the process and you actually seek to understand and you ask them where they got their information from and you follow up with that information. There's a lot of pieces in there that you end up finding out, no, they're really not that unreasonable. They believe this because this is what they've been taught. These are the talking points that they've been given. So how do you address that? How do you accommodate this? How do you accommodate for that? And you tie it into their values. Find out what's important to them, right? Like, I know people who will not talk to a conservative at all. I know people who will not talk to a liberal at all. I know people who won't talk to a feminist at all. I know people who won't talk to, an MRA, the men's rights advocates, at all. And there's all these diametrically opposing groups that just cannot meet in the middle because they can't have basic conversation. Because no one challenges them, because almost every side has absolutely awful ideas. Absolutely awful ideas. Almost every side has great ideas. Almost every side has valid points and invalid points. If your friends, if your family, if your colleagues, if people aren't willing to say those things to you, ask yourself why. And if they are willing to say those things to you and you're not willing to receive them, again, ask yourself why. You should always welcome positive discourse, right? Comparing of ideas. Now, there's a big difference between positive discourse and disrespect. When I start off with, you're stupid, obviously that's not meant in respect. But if someone asks you to justify an idea, to clarify it, explain where this came from, explain where you got your information from, this is your opportunity to really consider, where did you get this information? There was a point that happened a couple weeks ago for me at work where one of my bosses brought up an old An old concept. Well, my boss, I guess not one of my bosses. I have a boss. But he brought up a concept that was a fix that was developed for an agency that he worked for in the past, right? And in this conversation with him, I paused and I said, as a matter of fact, I believe that particular issue was corrected by a prior system. Let me verify. And I went back and I did my research and I did my testing with him, right? Now, both of us ended up being wrong. Both of us were wrong. But both of us were also right. And this is how. He was right that that was a fix that was developed in his prior agency for a different system, right? A different version of the system. I was right in the sense that in a version of the system even more legacy than his, my position was correct. It really was that way in that older system. Both of us were incorrect in that new changes had occurred, and neither one of us. The stuff that he said needed to be implemented didn't need to be implemented because it was natively supported. The stuff I was saying didn't exist actually did exist, and nothing needed to be implemented, nothing needed to be done special. It just works, right? Remember, things change. Information changes. There is nothing wrong in changing how you look at things. If you are exposed to new information that challenges what you believed prior to being exposed to that information, change your position. That is a sign of intelligence. It's not a sign of being wishy-washy or flaky. It's a sign of being able to understand that things change. Like this. This piece of technology sitting on my wrist wasn't even a possibility. Some of the top 10 jobs didn't even exist 5 years ago. Right? Like, be an advocate for growth in your life and the lives of others. Loyalty is when your friends, your family, your colleagues are focused and driven to help you be the best version that you want to be for yourself. They do this by asking, what are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your values? What are you trying to accomplish? Seek people that want to know those things and want to help you do the things that matter for you so that you can be the best version of yourself. If you follow around with people that are a constant echo chamber, you're not going to be the best version of yourself. You're going to be the version of yourself that holds yourself back. That's all I have for today. I know I rambled on a little bit. I wish everyone a wonderful day, and I'm going to go ahead and eat my dinner now. Take care.